Are you wondering how to easily create great lesson plans for your classes on Outschool? Well, you're in the right spot. Today I'm going to walk you through how I use my lesson plan template to create my own classes for Outschool. Hello everyone, I'm Teacher Natalie, the Edtech Wizard. Welcome back to my channel. My channel is dedicated to providing you with tips and tricks to help you become the best online teacher you can be. So let's get started. Here is my lesson plan template that I use to create all of my lessons for Outschool. All of my ongoing classes and one-time classes. This is the template I use. So I'm going to walk you through how I use it for a math class. I teach math on Outschool. I love to teach math. It is a lot of fun. But as I am filling out for my math class, I will also be giving you an example of a cooking class to show you that this lesson plan template still works for any topic. It does not have to be an academic topic. Now, if you want this lesson plan, it is linked down below. It is a freebie. Go grab it and you can start creating your own lessons. So let's get started. First thing you need to think of is your class idea and your age range. I want to create a math class. I want to have it be an add-in class for 5 to 6 year olds. That is my age range. Your age range is going to help guide you when creating your lesson. Now, I like to keep my age range really small because I can't create a math lesson for 5 to 10 year olds. I can't have that 5-year-old or that 5-year gap because a 10-year-old is at a much higher level at math than a 5-year-old. They, at this age range at 10, they already know how to add. So keep that age range in mind. I don't like to have a big age range gap. That is mostly due to the topic I teach, because that is a very age range gap that is hard to teach to. So keep your age ranges small and it will help better guide your lessons. So let's jump to our lesson plan. I'm going to let you see as I am typing in what it is like to fill this out. So here in our lesson plan, our first topic is our objective. This is what do we want to accomplish with this lesson? What is our end goal? What do we want the students to accomplish? So for my lesson, being very specific will help us then translate what we are writing here into a great class listing. So the more specific I am will help me with a class listing. So I want students to add within 20. So by the end of the lesson, students will add within 20. Now, if this were a cooking lesson, I wanted to work on frosting. I just wanted a lesson to be on frosting. So my objective could be students will learn 2 techniques to frost a cupcake. I want to be very specific, not just students will frost a cupcake. How are they frosting a cupcake? I'm going to teach them 2 different techniques to frost a cupcake. Now my age range, I'm going to type it in here, is 5 to 6. And my total time, your age range will play in a factor on how long you want to run your class as well as the topic you're teaching. But for my age range, 20-30 minutes max is what I will be doing. So right now I'm going to type in 25 minutes. And as you go along with your lesson, you can adjust this time, because maybe you type it all out and have everything down. Maybe it's going to take a little longer, or it might not take as long as I thought. So adjust this time. Don't think everything's set in stone. Now, our next section is our material section. In our material section, you are going to list everything you need to bring as a teacher to teach this lesson, as well as everything the student will need to teach this lesson. So for my math lessons, I like to create them so they are fun and engaging and interactive, and students are moving things and doing things because it's math, and I just have to do that to make it fun. So I'm going to list everything I need. For adding, I'm going to need some counters, whether that's beans or some kind of goldfish cracker. I like to use that kind of stuff, so students can see me how I'm adding 3 goldfish plus 4 goldfish equal. That's where my thinking is with my materials list. I want my students to bring the same type of materials, any type of thing they can count, that they can move and count. If you are doing a cooking lesson, list everything you are going to need as well as the student needs. Frosting tips, what are you going to frost on? Think of everything. So let's write that down. The teacher will need, I'm going to put beans, some kind of counters. It could be whatever I would want, but I would have beans. And then the students will need a counter. Don't mind my spelling. Guys, I'm terrible. I can't even find there we go. Students will need some kind of counters as well. That way they can follow along and do what I am doing. This materials list you can revisit throughout your lesson. Revisit. Don't think everything you write now is set in stone. That's how it has to be. Revisit it. Revise it as you go along. That is the beauty of a lesson plan. Now our next section is our intro. In our intro section, this is the very beginning of our lesson as we start teaching. So I'm going to build reputation with my students in this section, as well as ask questions to know what do they know on my topic already. So I always like to ask fun questions like what they did that day, or what is something they're thankful for, as well as questions like do you know what adding is, or can you count to 20? Those are kind of the backgrounds that my students need before I teach my lesson, so I want to know where their background is. Same with cooking. Have they frosted a cupcake before? What techniques do they use to frost cupcakes? I want to get that background knowledge from them as well, and that will help guide my lesson and my instruction and help provide the best instruction I can. So in our intro, I'm just going to write down some very specific questions that I want to remember to answer. I don't have to write down how was your day, because those are questions I ask every time, but questions specific for this lesson have, can you count to 20? I want to see that. And what is adding? Can they explain adding to me? That is what I want to find out. So in this intro section, I want to make sure to write down questions I want to remember to ask. I do not have to write down everything word for word. That takes a lot of time. If it's something you do a lot over and over and over, like the intro questions, those building reputation questions, I do not have to write them down. Now, our next section is model and teach your content. Now, for our modeling and teaching section, this is our section for me to write down how am I going to teach my material to my students? How am I going to present it to my students? Now, in my case, for my lesson, I am adding, so I'm going to write down a problem, 3 plus 5, and I'm going to show them how to move 3 objects here, 5 objects here, and add them together. That is what I'm going to show them. Now for this section where you are just teaching, you want to engage your learners as well. You do not want to just be you on the screen talking the whole time. Okay, now your turn, go for it. You still want to engage your learners in this part of your lesson so you know they are engaged in listening. So for me, for my math lesson, I will do at least 3 different problems first one is going to be just me showing them how to add these two numbers together. The next problem, I'm going to use the same problem, use a different problem, same type of concept. I have a problem, and maybe this time I'm going to ask them, what's this number? And they'll say 3. So I'm going to count out 3 objects. And then plus 5. How many objects do I need? 5 objects. So I'm still doing the work, but I'm keeping them engaged. I will do the same thing with another problem. Now, this is not the bulk of my lesson. Modeling and teaching is not going to be the bulk of my lesson. The bulk of my lesson is in the group work, and we'll get to that one in a second. But I want most of my lesson to be students working together to solve questions, to solve problems, because that is more fun. And then I am there offering support and jumping in where I need to. But I want them to be doing most of the work. So, model teacher content. Let's fill this out on my lesson plan. Now when I go to fill out this section of the modeling of me teaching, I am not going to write out what I want to say word for word. In my experience with lesson planning and teaching, I don't have a lesson plan right there in front of me when I am teaching and I'm not reading it. I like to type notes, like to type those main points. What do I need to cover? So for modeling, teaching my content, I'm going to, I can write out three problems that I want to solve. So 3 plus 5, oh my goodness, so 3 plus 5 equals, and write out 2 more problems, so 2 plus 8, and 9 plus 10. So I'm going to write out these 3 problems, the ones that I want to cover in this section. Now I'm going to type out what I want students to be doing. That way I remember. When I come to this section, I'm going to ask them to shout out the numbers for me. I'm going to ask them to count the answer for me. Count the sum. So these are my engagement strategies that I want to use. So in my lesson, in my head, I can visually see what I want to do, but I also need enough notes so when I have this lesson pop up on my schedule and I'm reviewing my lesson, I know what I want to do. So I'm off to the side, I'm going to type model so I remember what I want to do. I'm going to model these 3 questions. Student engagement, I want them to shout out the answers. I want to count the sum. That's how I'm going to keep them engaged. So I'm going to type that off to the side so I remember. Now on your lesson, it is your lesson, so you provide the detail you need. The time spent on this section for me is going to be about 5 minutes. It is not very long. For a harder topic, so if I were teaching division for students, that would have more time on my part teaching it. Therefore, that part will be longer and I will have to add in more detail for them. But where this part, I'm going to spend 5 minutes, 5 minutes or more. Now this is your lesson plan, so type in as much information as you need to be successful. So you need to type enough notes for you to remember what and how you're going to teach this. So when this lesson pops up in your schedule, you can look over your lesson before you teach it and you remember how you're going to teach it. So for me, adding those 3, I put in those 3 questions and then I went back and put, oh, I'm going to model these so I remember what I'm going to do. Or these are what kind of questions I'm going to ask my students during this teaching time so I can see if they're understanding. Those are the types of questions I put in my lessons because I need to remember to put those in there. And then I also, down at the very bottom, I have a time frame. How long is it going to take you to teach this? This timepiece will help you stay on track on your lesson, so you make sure you are hitting all of your points and are ending on time. So for me and my little students, this section, my model teaching section, might take 5 minutes for me to go through all of my problems. If they're really getting it, then 5 minutes is up and I know I can move on. If maybe they're struggling a little bit with the concept, then I know for the next portion, the group work, I can offer more support, or in my teaching section, I can add in more problems. The next section of our lesson plan is our group work. Now this is where I like to spend the majority of my time in my lessons, is group work, where students are interacting, talking, and learning together. So for my lesson plan, I love games, so we're gonna play a game where students are adding together, they're solving problems together, and then they can move a little piece on a game board that I have down on my table, and I have a camera on it, and I am moving the pieces for them, but they're still playing a game. So let's add that in to our lesson plan. Here I'm going to type out what I want students to do. So we're going to play a board game. And here I would type a specific board game. Right now I don't have one right off the top of my head, but I know we're going to play a board game. And I will need pieces and a dice for this game. So I'm going to hop back up to my materials section and type in my materials. I need a board game, pieces, and dice. And since I have dice, it's always fun to roll dice to come up with our addition problem. So I'm going to put roll dice to come up with a problem. That's how we're going to play with it. And then for our game, I need to type out some instructions so I remember how we want to play it. So we're going to roll the dice, and I want everyone to solve the problem using their objects, their counting objects they brought. And then once everyone has solved it, then I can take turns for everyone to roll the dice and move. So then everyone moves. Now this is going to be the majority of my lesson. So modeling, that's going to be about 5 minutes. Their game, that's going to be about 10 minutes. I want 10 minutes, everyone practicing adding together. And then I can even type in how I want students to respond so I can remember, and we can add in some fun ways. So I can have students shout out the answer once everyone has the answer, or I can have everyone whisper the answer. So I can type in the different ways I want students to respond to get higher engagement. Now after our group work, I'm going to have individual work. This is where I want students to respond and answer a question by themselves. I want to see, can they do it by themselves? So I'm going to type in a question I want them to answer. 4 plus 5 equals, so I want, after our game, I want students to answer this question by themselves. I want to know if they can do it. Now, I can spend about maybe 5 minutes here. That's 20 minutes right here of the majority of my lesson. So, after they've answered the question, I want everyone to be able to answer it. So, let's say if they hold up their fingers. hold up fingers to show me the answer. That way I know a student has it or knows how to add, and that way I don't have one student dominating the whole conversation. Holding up your fingers for an answer gives everyone an opportunity to answer. And then we're going to answer some more questions, and for these questions I can roll the dice again. Roll dice to come up with a problem. Sorry for my spelling. Okay, now we filled out the modeling section. You are teaching your content. How are you teaching it? Your group work. What are you doing as a group work, group project to engage your students in your content in your lesson? And then individual work. What can they do this by themselves? And the individual work, this section does not have to be very long at all either. Now, example for our cooking lesson. I wanted to go over them all at once so you can see. So teaching your content, if we are frosting, maybe you are showing your students a technique, and then they are working together so you are teaching your students a technique, they are watching you, that's your teaching portion. And then students can work together to explain back the technique you just had them see. So what do I need to do first? Well, let's put the frosting into our frosting tip. Something like that. And then you can jump on, okay, now my students need to show me this technique on their own cupcake, how to frost it. So you can still go through these same steps, but mix them up. Maybe they're longer, maybe they're shorter, maybe you're going to do them several times during your lesson. So after they've done this technique, then you're going to repeat the process with your technique number 2, because you said you're going to teach them 2 techniques. So let's teach it. Students, explain back to me how we're going to do it. Okay, now you show me how to do it. And then repeat, and repeat as much as you need to for your lesson. So all of these content areas are here in your lesson. So they might just be, maybe you're going to do it twice. Maybe you're going to spend a longer time teaching because you have a harder concept. So the majority, you really have to teach and use visuals to teach it, and then you're going to have a group work. Maybe your lesson doesn't have an individual section, and that is okay. You need to fill out your lesson as best as you can to fit your needs and your students and your class type. Now the last section in our lesson plan is review. I like to review everything we have talked about during our lesson. So at this point, this will be me saying, hey, we learned adding today, and then I'm going to ask them some questions, get their engagement. Did you like adding today? How'd you do? Kind of? No? So I like to just review, go over what we've learned. So I want to ask them what they learned today. What they learned today. I'm going to review what we did. Oops. So today we learned how to add. I want to ask them what they learned. And I always like to ask if they had fun. It's fun to hear their different responses. Did you have fun? Ta-da! And our review is not going to take very long. Not long at all. Maybe 2 minutes to close and wrap everything up. So, intro time, that's not going to take very long either. I hope you found this video helpful and in using a great lesson plan template to help you fill out your own lessons for Outschool. lesson planning is a very important part of teaching, and it helps you get all of your ideas down on the paper and all of your lessons and questions down and the points you want to hit. Now remember, this is your lesson, and I know there are so many types of classes you can teach here on Outschool. So I tried to keep this lesson plan template to provide a great teaching tool for multiple different types of content. But when you go to fill out your lesson plan, the model teaching part, your group work, the individual work, that is the bulk of your lesson. I hope you found this video helpful and in teaching you strategies to fill out your own lesson plan template. Again, this is linked down below. Go grab your free copy. In that free copy, you'll be able to see a sample lesson plan and ideas as well for each section, tips for engagement and what you can do for each section. Now, the model, the teach your content section is going to be you teaching your content. How are you going to teach and present your topic? I used a problem and my manipulatives to teach my content. Maybe you're going to use slides to teach your content. So how are you going to teach and present your content? And then as well, write down ways you're going to engage your students so you remember. Ask them questions as you are teaching so you have their attention and know they're listening. Your group work. This is always the majority of my lessons because it is more fun to work together with other students instead of listening to me talk the whole time. So group work, write down the activity you are going to be doing as a group. This is where I tie in my games. Games are a lot of fun. So we play games during this time. Maybe you're working on a group project together. Maybe you are having a group discussion. What is your group activity and how are you going to engage your students? And our last portion is our individual work. Now, maybe you have this section, maybe you don't have this section. I like to have this section because then I know how I did as a teacher. It's kind of like an assessment part. Did my students understand and grasp the content? Can they answer this question by themselves? Maybe they're doing an individual project. Or maybe your individual work is a printout that you are going to send home. I taught this lesson, we did a group work. Now here is a worksheet for you to practice at home by yourself. You have free reign over what you are teaching, your group work, and your individual work. And then to sum your lesson all up, go over some review questions, ask them about the lesson, talk about what they learned to wrap up your lesson. This is a very easy peasy lesson plan template to follow. Thanks for watching my video, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.